Right, let's start filming, shall we? So let's talk today about how morality stabilizes countries. Now, when I say this, what I mean is that when it comes to countries, it's a lot easier to manage things when the people within it have a shared moral framework. It's a massive benefit to the countries in question. See, assimilation to said moral framework could be difficult depending on how many people and who you're assimilating, but is still invaluable in the long run because these shared morals increase the trust of a society and allow for less hands on control without worry. The best way to think of it is like this. Let's say you have a pluralistic society with many different peoples and many different moral foundations. Your law system is still going to have to privilege, to some extent or another, one moral framework. Or else you'll just have people claiming whatever moral system is convenient for the laws they want. If you don't make it consistent, you're going to have issues. And so, what'll end up happening is people will get angry because, well, people of their group, which believe in one moral belief system. Maybe it's an ethical model based on utilitarianism. Maybe it's just a general moral framework that came from tradition, whatever it is. They aren't being judged according to their own morals in the law. They're getting judged on some other groups. Or maybe no group feels as though they are being judged according to their morals. That could also happen. And so you need a more hands on approach where essentially you are constantly enforcing the law because these peoples do not believe that your law is just. But if everyone agrees on the standards and agrees, okay, this is what's right, the law fits with this, then you have a situation where people don't worry as much because, hey, the state can handle it if necessary. Not to mention, there's just more trust between people individually, so why would you commit a crime? It's not like you're attacking those other people, you're attacking one of your own community members. And with how, let's face it, tribalistic people can be, that's a very real difficult thing to do. It is not instinct to attack one's own people. Rather, with attacks, it almost always is someone outside, if you can, and get the same result. Because, well, it's a lot easier to justify hurting those other people, those lesser people, usually in such a person's view, than it is to attack your own people who are similar enough to you to be considered equal. Let's face it, that's how people with in-group biases tend to think to some extent or another. Will they outright say, yes, you are directly inferior to me? Not always, no. But there's still a very real sense of bias and thus favoritism and weight towards one's own people. Adding to that, charity and cooperation are likely to increase when there is less tension between individuals as a result of such morality. See, when someone's helping you, it can be because of exoticism. Oh, those poor people over there who I don't know much about, I'm sure they could use some charity from someone as kind as I am. That can happen, yeah. But a lot of it is close to home. Parents helping their kids, communities helping members of it. That's where a lot of charity and cooperation come from because you either know the people or you know the group. And if you know one of the two, it's a lot easier to part with your money or your time or labor because you trust in them. You have reason to. It allows for greater charity, greater kindness, and thus stabilizes the country because something that may have to instead be paid for by the state or some other larger institution will instead be paid for by local community members or people of a certain group which identify with each other, and they'll help each other, making it a lot easier on everyone else. And furthermore, when it comes to tolerance, it can effectively exist in a standardized moral framework because there is less to worry about of said tolerance being taken advantage of. See, when there's a bunch of different beliefs, naturally there will be those who are more aggressive. Not because necessarily their people are inherently more aggressive, but because their beliefs or their morals are more willing to justify aggression in certain instances. It just comes to the fact that if you believe aggression is acceptable in A, B, or C reasons, well, if A, B, or C comes up, you're more likely to do it. Versus if it's only acceptable in A reason, well then, you're not going to do it as much because you only have that one circumstance. I'm, of course, exaggerating to make the point, but that's still very true and very much a thing people have to consider when it comes to different groups. there will be those more willing to be violent, aggressive, or otherwise just hurt people for their own interests or for their perceived group interests. But when everyone believes roughly the same, it doesn't have to be exact, of course. There will never be exacts and complete moral uniformity. But so long as it's a large enough chunk, tolerance can effectively exist because there's less to worry about of that tolerance being taken advantage of by outsiders who disagree with one's moral stance. Let's face it, is someone going to attack you if they believe the exact same thing as you over moral reasons? No. If you two believe the exact same thing, act in accordance with those things, they aren't going to attack you unless there's some other justification. Or they're just a piece of trash. That could also happen, yes. But it's far more likely that they find some other justification if they attack at all, and even then, questionable. And so you're able to afford tolerance, afford tolerating people who are slightly different because they are close enough morally to you that you can trust that they'll do the right thing. That is how it is. It's not a matter of necessarily, how should I put it, supremacy. It's just a matter of cooperation, after all. You are willing to cooperate with a people because you know the people more or less. It's not exact. It'll never be exact. But it's close enough that you are willing to work with them. And so a shared moral framework is very useful for a state. Honestly, it's very useful for most groups. Because if you have a shared moral framework, it's a lot easier to accept what is right and what is wrong, and to act accordingly. Sometimes you can be wrong with your shared moral framework, sometimes that's just the case, but it's a lot better to have a more uniform one than one that's fractured. Because the moment it's fractured, well, trust is gone, tolerance is becoming very dangerous at such a state, charity and cooperation go down, meaning more polarization, and generally people are going to want to fight more, because they want to assert their legal system, their beliefs based on their morals. And so, there are threats that come when this isn't the case. But the reverse is also true. When it is the case, then, well, there are many benefits. And so, thus it shall be. And I would say a morally stable country should exist. One where people believe similarly. Not exact, never exact. You can't force such a thing. But similar enough that you can at least have a shared sense of moral purpose. Shared sense of right and wrong, at bare minimum. Enough to trust and tolerate. Where the differences can effectively be handled by agreed or disagreed rather than violence. Can't always do that. But if it's close enough, you can. Generally, do so. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.